If you look at what's been happening around the world and how these recycling sites catch fire, they're almost impossible to put out because they generate their own fuel, being a petroleum product. I'm going to give 2 or 3 visuals looking at the size of the footprint of the site, and although the site meets fire regulations in terms of its design, the design is actually flawed. If the site catches fire, it'll almost be impossible to put out. Around the world, some visuals of plastic refining sites that have caught fire. It's not so much the top ones in Wales, the one in Richmond, Indiana. I think what's important here is look at the firefighting equipment that is used on these. The distance that you have to be from the fire is significant for you to be able to get an angle of trajectory where you can actually focus on putting the fire out. Look at the style of firefighting equipment that's been used. Richmond, Indiana is fairly recent, that was last year. 2,000 people living within half a mile of the facility were forced to evacuate. That's 2-kilometer distance, so that's between, as the crow flies, between the centre of Moss Vale and the facility. Those people were evacuated until the fire actually burnt itself out. What site is about the same size as Plasrefine? And this one actually matches it quite well. If you see, I've got a little red ring around the fire engine. That's the same kind of fire engine that we have locally in the Southern Highlands. There you can see it sitting next to this fire, which that plant is probably 2 to 3 times the size of a Bunnings Warehouse. So it has a similar footprint, although not as high. And I noticed that whoever did the drawing of the Plasrefine facility, the drawing was taken away from the artist before they could put the smokestacks in. This is about 3 or 4 stories high. So that gives you some sort of aspect as to the relationship between the size of the firefighting equipment and the size of the fire. So I went through the guidelines for access for fire brigade vehicles, firefighters. It's online, and it gives the specifications for a building as to what should be in place to allow access for firefighters and equipment. That is a Plasrefine site. The white is the road around the site. Now that is to specification. You have to have a ring road around the site. I don't dispute that's not to specification, it is. And if the building is higher than a certain height, then you need to make allowance for specialized firefighting equipment, which is a minimum of a 6-meter lane around the facility. 6 meters is the width of your double garage. Now, I don't think anybody in their right mind, when you've got plastic burning at 1,200 degrees centigrade and a fire which is 3 to 4 stories high, that you're going to take one of those vehicles up the side of this building, put the stabilizers out, and then extend a ladder and hope that you can reach to the right trajectory where you can put the fire out. So, despite the fact that it meets the requirements as in terms of the guidelines, it's not practical. You cannot actually drive fire vehicles up around this building, park them, put stabilizers out, and think that you can actually make a difference. The type of equipment needs to be further away from the building, and obviously the kind of agents that you're using would not be your normal pumper. So there are a number of reasons why this is just not practical, and that footprint is quite confined. That if a fire does start in this plant, it will burn until there's nothing left to burn. It'll be left to burn.